to Kylie's Corner. So in this reading vlog, I am reading Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. It is the last book in the duology. So in my last video, I was reading Six of Crows, and in this one, you'll see me reading Crooked Kingdom. I think that I read it pretty quickly, so I'm not sure how much footage you'll see of me actually reading it, but nonetheless, I hope you enjoy. I just finished reading Crooked Kingdom, and I definitely need to gather my thoughts. I cried twice at the end. One was sad tears, and the other was just like, oh my gosh, finally, tears. So definitely a lot of thoughts and emotions that I don't really know if I can speak on right now. I need to kind of collect myself, but I'm gonna miss this series. I'm like sad it's over. Feeling a lot of things. I'm glad that I'm doing a 24-hour reading day today and that I can move on to another book immediately, because I'm definitely feeling a hole in my heart where the Six of Crows series used to be. So okay, so I have now finished reading Crooked Kingdom, and I just wanted to share a few of my final thoughts for this novel, and then a little bit about what I thought of this series overall as a whole. So I don't have many things that I disliked about Crooked Kingdom. In fact, there's only one thing that I kind of had an issue with, and I'll explain that a bit later. But I mostly have positive things to say about this novel, so I'll get into it right now. The first thing that I really liked about this novel was that I think the heists were elevated in this one. There was more than one heist in Crooked Kingdom, and I think that they just were overall a lot more complex than what we saw in Six of Crows. And honestly, they were so complex that I was sometimes left a little bit confused. But I think that was intentional, and it's another thing that I really liked about this novel is that the readers were left out of the loop sometimes for what the plan was. And so I found myself thinking, oh my god, this person is a traitor, they just ratted out the crew. And then you find out later on that that was part of the plan. Kaz had planned for this person to be a snake, and then it moved the heist forward. So I really, really enjoyed that. I liked that I was often thrown off guard and caught by surprise with what was happening in the novel, because in Six of Crows and in this one, the other crew members always talk about how Kaz leaves them out and only tells them what they need to know. And so they are often also confused or caught by surprise in the middle of these heists. And so I felt like by leaving the readers out as well, we were really brought into how the other crew members feel during these heists when something catches them by surprise or when they're not fully prepared for something to happen. And I really enjoyed that. The second thing that I really liked about Crooked Kingdom was that Kuwei, I hope that I am pronouncing that correctly, he forms a personality in this one. So in the first book, he was just, to me, a scared kid. And then in this book, he kind of, over the course of time, we see more dialogue from him, and he advocates for himself when they are planning things. And yeah, I just started to fall in love with him over the course of this book. I think that he has such a kind heart, and he's always kind of offering to give himself up for the crew. And he's also funny, and I actually didn't realize that he had formed more of a personality in this novel until the scene where Jesper thinks that he's Wylan, and Kuwei understands what's going on but lets it happen anyway, and he just kind of laughs at Jesper for it and is like mischievous. And I was like, oh dang, when did Kuwei become like more formed as a person and a character in this novel? And then from there on out, I started really recognizing how much he again has formed into his own person. And you know, he has had such a hard time of it, and he gets picked up by this ragtag crew, and they aren't always the nicest, and he still manages to stay sweet and funny. And so Kuwei was definitely a highlight in this novel for me. Next two things I'm going to talk about are things that made me cry at the end of the novel that happened, and they made me cry in a good way, kind of. And the first is Kaz's speech to Inej when they're out on the docks, and he is finally telling her how he feels about her, and he is bringing her parents, and his whole entire speech during that scene made me bawl like a baby. It was so good. It was delivered in typical Kaz fashion, and that's something that I really like about Kaz and Inej's romance, is they don't lose themselves in each other. So the way that they love each other is very true to who they are with other people as well, and you know, the issues that they have are presented when they try to love one another, and it was done so well. They're both such broken people that are trying to become whole again, and that scene at the end just made me cry. And I'm so glad it happened, because I was kind of like, I don't know if Kaz is going to be able to man up and get past this and tell Inej that he has feelings for her. And then he exceeded my expectations when he finally did tell her. So I love that scene. That might go down as one of my favorite romance scenes of all time out of any book I've read. It just was so tender, and again, true to the characters we've come to love over the course of this duology, and it was so good. Definitely a scene I'll be coming back to. The second thing that I liked that made me cry, and the fourth thing overall that I liked about this book, was the way that Matthias died. So I was not expecting it. I knew that one of these characters was either going to die or have a very, very severe injury that drastically changed the way that they move about in their world. So I was bracing myself for something sad to happen, and I didn't really expect it to be Matthias, and I didn't really expect it to be the way that I just wasn't expecting it to pan out that way. And selfishly, I am kind of glad it was him and not one of the others, because he, out of all the characters, was the one I was the least attached to. That's not to say I didn't like him. He did grow on me. I think I mentioned that in the first reading vlog, but he just wasn't as special to me as the other characters. So selfishly, I'm glad it was him, but I felt so bad for Nina. And that's why I was crying. I was crying for Nina and her pain and suffering. So that brings me into the one thing that I didn't really like about Crooked Kingdom, or I shouldn't say didn't like, but just that I wished I would have seen more of, and that is I wanted to see more of the aftermath from Nina's perspective, because I was reading the ending and the thing with Matthias happened, and then I kept reading and we got, I think, 1 or 2 more chapters of Nina, because the chapters are, in the character's perspective that the chapter's going to be in. And I was getting to the ending and I was like, wait, there's not one more chapter with Nina? I just felt like things weren't fully wrapped up for me on her end, and I wanted to see more of her thoughts, and just one more chapter would have been, I think, better for her ending. But that being said, overall, again, this book was a 5 out of 5 stars for me. I really enjoyed it. I think that the author did a really great job of developing all of the characters. They all had amazing character arcs. They all changed. They all were fighting and struggling so hard with their own individual demons. And in this novel, we really got to see them working on it and becoming aware of how their demons were presenting themselves in their relationships with other members of the crew. And so that was just, I think it was wrapped up beautifully. I think the characters were developed beautifully, and then their endings were wrapped up beautifully. And I think all of their endings were very fitting for each of the characters. Again, I wish we would have seen more about Nina, but I do still think her ending was very fitting, because she does get an ending and things do wrap up. I guess I just wished I would have seen more of her thoughts. So yeah, I highly recommend reading this. Of course, if you're watching this, you probably already read it, because there are spoilers in here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Waking up feeling like it's gonna rain.